Hypocrisy seems to be yet another characteristic of war. The biggest drumbeats on behalf of Ukraine have come in from Boris Johnson, who's been urging the rest of the world to cut off all imports from Russia. But what is interesting is that Britain itself has not stopped its import of Russian coal. Just last month, 130,000 tons of Russian coal arrived at a port in Lincolnshire on a ship that was flying a Greek flag. The ship may not have been Russian, but the coal most definitely was. From the beginning of the war, there's been a consensus that to stop the Russian war machine, Europe must stop importing the Russian hydrocarbons. There's been a lot of talk on this issue, but very little action. The question, of course, is why has Europe not been able to stop the import of Russian oil and gas?
Russia is the world's third largest producer of crude oil, behind only the United States and Saudi Arabia. On an average, each day, Russia exports a staggering 5 million barrels of oil to the outside world. And more than half of this is imported by neighboring Europe. Till the beginning of the Ukraine war, this trade was mutually beneficial. Russia enjoyed the brimming oil profits, while Europe was guaranteed a reliable and cheap source of energy from next door. Europe paid and still pays $1 billion every single day to import Russian hydrocarbons. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky calls this blood money. The only Western power to impose a complete ban on Russian oil is the United States. But then, Russian oil was just 3% of America's oil requirement. Britain relies on Russia to meet 8% of its oil requirement. Boris Johnson describes Russian oil as the addiction of Europe. But he is still to announce a halt on this import. Britain appears as addicted to Russian oil as anyone else. All that Downing Street has done so far is to produce a blueprint to phase out Russian oil by the end of this year, by which time the conflict is expected to be long over. Germany is in the most difficult position. It imports 34% of its oil and 65% of its gas from Russia. But the German Chancellor stood with the British Prime Minister at Downing Street and announced this.
We are actively working to get independent from the import of oil, and we think that we will be able to make it during this year. And we are actively working to get independent from the necessity of importing gas from Russia.
The announcement was bold. Germany made its intention clear, but the details remained fuzzy. Meanwhile, the Western economists have sounded a dire warning. An embargo on Russian oil could potentially tank the world economy. Soon enough, the German Chancellor was forced to rethink his commitment. He defended his volte-face by saying that avoiding an embargo on Russian gas meant avoiding a dramatic financial crisis, the loss of millions of jobs and of factories that would never open again. According to projections, if Berlin spurns Russian gas, the German economy will lose a staggering $240 billion, or about 6.5% of its gross domestic product within the next 2 years, sparking off a sharp recession in Europe's largest economy, with knock-on effects on the rest of Europe. For the first time since the 1970s, there is talk about rationing oil and gas in Europe. This would mean Europeans will be asked to drive less, turn down their air conditioning, and work from home 3 days a week. Crude oil breaching $200 per barrel has become a very real possibility. In stark terms, the cost of defending Ukraine is simply too high for Germany and the rest of Europe. The Biden administration, too, has performed a diplomatic somersault. It has reached out to Venezuela's president, Nicolas Maduro, to offset the price of gas that has got kicked up to $4.4 per gallon. Paradoxically, higher oil prices play into Russian hands. An embargo on Russian oil by Europe will not halt the Ukraine war. Instead, it will rewrite the global energy business. It will plunge Europe into a decade of recession. While Russia, due to the higher energy prices and new markets in Asia and Africa, will remain relatively unaffected. Bureau Report, WION World is One.